We got a pretty good show tonight. We're going to be talking about a little bit more in depth about what these transfer portal guys that are coming in, that have came in, that have already committed, that potentially will commit, and the recruits on what they can do for Florida State on winning more ball games and what they're going to bring to the table for this team to succeed more. We're also going to have an overall conversation about if Florida State, in our opinion, will be a contender in 2023 for stuff like the ACC title. Will we go to the playoffs? Stuff to that nature will be in effect of what we talk about. As always, this show is brought to you by Game Day Vodka. Game Day Vodka is an American company. It's American made, American distilled, American bottled, and sold in America. You can go to GameDayVodka.com, and as long as you're 21 years of age or older, you can order your favorite team's vodka. Or if you have a Publix or ABC Wine and Spirits near you, you can go buy it there. And don't forget that they have a really cool seltzer that's nothing like any other seltzer because it's juice and vodka. Tastes really good. A lot of people are a huge fan of it, and we appreciate their partnership with us at Spirit Addicts. So we're gonna dive just head first into this. The most recent, as long as I'm not mistaken, the most recent transfer portal commit is Casey Roddick. What does Casey Roddick do for Florida State, in your opinion, Taylor?
Personally, he is a very good veteran option that Colorado had. Played about 700 snaps for Colorado this past season, was a team captain, very efficient pass blocker, had an 82.9 PFF grade, somebody that was really good in being able to pass block at an efficient rate. And you're looking at guys like Demetri Emmanuel and also Dylan Gibbons, and you're trying to find that experienced option. When you're having both of those guys leave the program, plus you got a Jazz Turntine that's leaving the program as well because their eligibility being exceeded. And at this point, you got a guy that's been a pretty productive guy for Colorado. This is a guy that's going to coming in. I believe he's a redshirt junior this past season, so he'll be a senior this upcoming season. So it's going to be really exciting to see how he kind of factors into everything because I know Florida State really enjoys these guards that are able to move efficiently with their feet. One thing with Caden Lyles, and this isn't really a knock with him, he's a little more slower on his feet. He is built more as a center, and you can clearly see that, but unfortunately we weren't really able to see him because of the injury. So I think Florida State's getting a really good piece in Casey Roddick, and I do think this is a guy that Florida State really looked heavily on. And there's some other guys, too, that we'll talk about a little bit later, but this was a guy that Florida State needed to grab, and they did.
James, what's your opinion on Roddick? Do you agree with all of what Taylor said? Do you have anything to add?
I think I'm of the perception that every year you bring in 5 offensive linemen. Now you have the transfer portal, high school, whatever it is, you need to bring in guys so that you don't have to rush your developmental guys. Also, attrition happens, but if you've got 15 offensive linemen, typically you're 3 deep, and that's kind of what you need for practice, for health-wise, for all these different things going on. In particular, for what the goals is that Florida State should be having. One of the great things about the recruiting strategy and why I'm not of the ilk of woe is me, our rivals are recruiting way, way better than us, is because I look at Florida has 19 guys who've entered the transfer portal as of right now. Miami's not too far from that, plus more entering, plus senior attrition. They're going to have to replace 30 to 40 guys, whereas we're going to probably we only have about 10 to 15 people that we can really replace at this juncture right now. Some guys are going to have to be asked to maybe not come back. So a guy like this, a journeyman piece, could he come in and fill in the Dylan Gibbons role? Possibly. You got a guy who's got 2,000 career snaps. He gave up 1 sack on a bad team, but played some really, really good defenses against Colorado. You got Oregon, Utah, different things like that. So he's really good against the pass rush. Can he be good in the running game with what our offense is? I just like the veteran opportunities at the guard position so that we don't have a huge drop-off with losing a guy like Dylan Gibbons who's anchored that line for 2 years.
And I'll also add to James's point as well, even if he is a quality reserve, that is still part of your 2 deep at this point. I mean, Florida State fans are kind of questioning the take and, will he be able to be a surefire starter? Even if he's not, he is still a quality reserve. And that's something that Florida State fans definitely need to understand, that we need quality depth at that position. As you saw from this past season, luckily enough, only those 7 guys that we played this past season on the offensive line, none of those guys really got hurt after all the season-ending injuries, and people were concerned about offensive line depth. So,
Chip, you got any thoughts about this?
Well, Caden, he was one of the very few bright spots on a really, really bad Colorado team. When he said his 82%, like he can hold down his part of the offensive line. Now, whether he comes in and he's ever win a starting job, or if he is just, like you said, an experienced backup who can step in at any time. Like I said, it's a plus for us. Like I said, the experience alone, playing over 700 snaps, it's a plus for us.
Yeah, and a quick breakdown of what I've seen, because I got to go back and watch some of his film today. It's been a very busy day, but luckily I was able to do so. I really like how he can pretty much say he can play right or left guard. I didn't know that about him. He was moved quite a bit in this line when injuries took place throughout the year, and he's pretty efficient on either side. He also can snap the ball from center. Very versatile guy, and I think that's very important when it comes to offensive linemen, because you don't always have someone that can play each and every position on the line, or even 2 or 3 positions on the line. So I think that that's really cool about what he brings to the table. So I think all in all, if you were to grade the pickup on him, Taylor, A, B, or C, or F, where would you grade him being for Florida State?
I think he's a B. You get most out of it, and I think this is a quality reserve at worst at this point. I think you were anticipating this to be a fringe starter, possibly starter at the beginning of the year, just kind of seeing how Keandre Jones, another kid from Auburn, goes, and some other guys that you have on the roster that you're trying to figure out is going to be a guard or a tackle or something like that. They like a lot of swing guys, like you said. So I think this is a grade that I think can go up as the season progresses and as the offseason progresses. But as of right now, I would say a B right now.
James, do you want to grade him, or?
I'll go C. I thought about C minus, and it's no disrespect to him. It's just I'm not even going to pretend to be able to be a true offensive line like gradesmith or connoisseur. But I'm grading lower because I don't want to always believe that just because somebody transfers in, they're necessarily better than what we already have. But he's a C with the ability to really, if he becomes a B, then that just means we have a championship caliber offensive line right there. And that means he's playing to the level of Dylan Gibbons or better. And I just don't know enough about Colorado football right now to be able to say that. So I'll give a C. I think he's at worst, like Taylor said, high quality backup, which you can't have enough of those.
Right. Chip, do you want to grade?
I give him a B minus, and that has the potential to turn in, during the season to a B plus, maybe an A minus, because like I said, he can play both guard positions, and he's got experience behind him being, I think I want to say what he was, a 2-year starter, 3-year starter.
Mm-hmm.
And like I said, that experience alone can translate on the offensive line. Now, I don't think I don't think we can compare him to Dylan at all. But to have that kind of experience and have that kind of veteran leadership in the locker room on the offensive line is going to help.
My grade is officially a C minus. Here's the reason being: he did not play on an RPO system. He did not have to shuffle as much as he's going to have to with Florida State. The good thing is that you've got Jordan Travis back there that can pretty much get away from anybody. But until I can see how he shuffles, or if he gets pulled to make a lead block, if he's pulled from left guard to come out and swing, I'm not sure that he's quick enough to do that yet. Especially as fast as the plays develop in the state of Florida. When you play against certain caliber teams, I'm a little bit worried he might be a little bit slow getting off of the snap. But as far as full-fledged run blocking, I think he's B plus all day long. But when you run the RPO and you got to pull that guard out to make a lead block, kind of worried that he's a little bit slow. But I still think it's a great backup piece. I don't think he's a starter. I think he is definitely a backup piece. Moving on. Go ahead, Taylor.
I will say this, and I'll kind of go to another transfer that we're kind of involved with that I talked about, Keandre Jones. He's actually from Auburn. He played right guard for them. 2021, he was a starter there. In 2022, though, when they struggled and didn't really do that well, he was just a reserve. He didn't really play a whole lot. I think he played about 200 snaps. It wasn't that great of production. I mean, it was a situation where you thought he was going to take that next step forward, but when he got to 2022, it just seemed like everything kind of fell off the wheels. That was kind of the same with this whole Auburn team at this point. It seemed like halfway through the season, they kind of gave up after the whole coaching situation and all the speculation starting over the season. When you don't win ball games, you kind of get out of your comfort zone a little bit, and especially when you had Robbie Ashford at quarterback. Didn't really do them too many favors there. And this is a guy that's 6'4", 340 pounds. You're taking a quality chance on him, I guess, but I just think he's more of a project. And this is where I would go to the C-, D+ range, because I think you're taking a risk on a guy that could ruin your development of your offensive line group. And I don't necessarily think he is better than what you got right now at the guard position. I think Roddick brings a different kind of mindset to the team. He's bringing starting experience. And while Jones did have starting experience in 2021, I just don't think it was quality reps enough to say, okay, you were far and beyond everyone else. I think it's just kind of a situation where Florida State's banking on him bringing back to that form and hopefully getting back to maybe being a quality reserve or a fringe starter if it needs to be, if an injury happens or something like that.
Well, who I'm going to move on to, kind of in the same realm, he's not committed to Florida State yet, not to my knowledge, is John Campbell. I think he would be a better pickup than who Taylor's talking about coming from Auburn. So I really hope that we get him pulled into this class of transfers, because I think he would be way more serviceable. Even though we're talking about separate positions, I still think he's a better offensive line piece. I think he can do more for us. And I was going to give him a B+ off the matter. And I don't want to get stuck on the grading part. I really just wanted it for Roddick, just based because he's definitely coming. But James, have you done any research on John Campbell?
Not much. I don't. I have to change my mindset and adapt it to how this generation thinks. And as a fan base, I think we'll all be a little bit better once we do that as well. Like, rivalries mean something to us, but it doesn't mean it's all business to these kids or about playing. Seeing guys like, I joked with Dugans. I used to tell him I couldn't cheer for him for years because he was at UM, and I get it. You got to pay your bills, but at the same time, just like same thing with Kevin Steele, like, guys down there that I respect, but bringing a kid in from here and not really, and it's tough with O-line because I don't know what he's done. There's nothing that stood out per se, but I do know we're getting, again, the size profile. It fits, and and I also the person I trust the most in all of it, on that coaching staff is Alex Atkins. If Alex Atkins wants him, then I believe that Alex Atkins feels that he can do something with him. Whether you believe in his development of high school prospects or not, because it's still been kind of yet to be seen. Everybody that's really made a name for themselves, as outside of Rob, actually he hasn't recruited any of them, but Rob Scott's done well. Mo Smith, but a lot of the other guys have been transfers, but those transfers weren't really getting it done at their other schools and are getting it done now over years. So I believe Alex Atkins at least knows what he's looking for in recruiting of body types. Agreed.
Taylor, what are your thoughts on John Campbell? Have you researched him a little bit?
I think he's solid. Same thing with Roddick. He's 73 grade, 9 run grade, nothing special. Just he's a better pass blocker than a run blocker. He's violent with his hands. I know Miami fans are a little bit more concerned that he left because I think he is one of the more productive pieces on that team. Played about 700 snaps, and this is a guy that was an experienced piece for them. I think it would be a tough loss for them. As much as they hate to admit it, they're going to have to choke their pride up a little bit. But I mean, this is a guy that was productive for them, and we'll kind of see how that goes. But I do like the size, the kind of take that we're possibly going to be able to get there. I think he has productive, and he can be that guy that Alex Atkins likes. I mean, this is going to be a senior, 6'5", 320 pounds. I think this is a guy that Alex Atkins can kind of mold into something really, really special. And I think he's more consistent than Jazz Turntine. I think that was the biggest concern coming into this year was Jazz Turntine wasn't very consistent. John Campbell, I think you're getting a more consistent player and a guy that has had that starting experience and hasn't really lost that starting experience. I think that's the bigger question there going forward.
Well, with this, I'm going to flip it a little bit to a non obviously early signing day is the 21st, which is Wednesday, and we anticipate X amount of players that are verbally committed to Florida State to sign. But right now, you know, the elephant, in my opinion, the elephant in the room is Falk. Everybody's worried that Auburn's going to, you know, flip him to away from us, etc. James, what are your feelings on Keldrick Falk right now? Are you worried that he might flip to Auburn at this point?
No, and I think we talked about it on this show about, you know, having the guys who know all of the little idiosyncrasies of your recruits and their family. And his mom is very, very much so a woman of faith. You know, whether you like Freeze or not, or whatever you believe, he leads with saying that he's a man of faith. So that kind of like pulled some of the strings. And he's from Alabama, and in that area is the Auburn hotbed. So it's tough. And then one thing I will say about this, and I'll preface it a little bit about, I predicted when Dalvin Cook was going to flip from Florida to Florida State. I talked to Dalvin's mom, and I said, hey, he was at the Under Armour All-American game. I was like, hey, man, you excited? Your baby's going to college on Monday. Now, this is on a Thursday. I'm like, your baby's going to college on the Monday. And she was like, well, you know, whatever God has and this, that, and the other. And I'm like, and I talked to the guy I said, single mother, baby going to college, and that's what she lived with? So he ain't going to Florida. I can tell you that much right there. He is something going on. All of a sudden, mom doesn't want you to leave, though, per se. Like, that's a tough thing to get your baby out the house. So, of course, she's going to want to see him stay a little bit closer. So he's going to do due diligence. But what I like about it is that they're going to allow him to make the decision as a man for what's best for him. So I think there's I think with I go 75% chance he's definitely in our class. He said he's coming. That's all I can take. If we lose him, it would really stink. That's the highest ranked guy you got. You've had him committed for the longest, and he bounces on you. That stinks. But at the end of the day, John Papuch is, again, I have faith in John and what he's been able to do with the development of his defensive end.
Taylor, I'm gonna ask you a similar question, but about a different guy.
Okay.
A lot of people are also worried about Edwin Joseph right now. Everybody is worried that he's going to go to Louisville.
Yeah.
Any concern with that as of right now?
Yeah, and I'll also add on to James's point about Keldrick Falk. Highland Home is probably about an hour and a half from Auburn, and then it's about 3.5 hours away from Tallahassee. So it's not that much of a difference, but I mean, you know, if the kid wants to go, the kid wants to go. But like I said, the only thing that really changed his mind would be a coaching staff change. And I don't see them firing JP or Norvell. So that's just on that one. Edwin Joseph, he had a little bit of an Instagram bio that everybody's freaking out about him having the Louisville tag in his player description. I wouldn't really worry about that. I think the kid's really just trying to beat out his recruitment. I still think Florida State leads in that recruitment. I don't think there's much to be concerned there. If he does go and they do offer him a lot more resources in that regard, okay. But I do think he's a very talented kid. They've been very transparent with him. He's very close to Hakeem Williams in a situation where Hakeem has talked about how he's going to be on a signing day ceremony, signing with Florida State. And there's going to be a lot of good news coming from that regard. So I personally think that Edwin Joseph, with him having such a great relationship with him, and that kind of factors into everything, I think Florida State's very transparent with him throughout the visits, and I think that still stands as we go through Wednesday.
All right, we're going to get on what I consider a very hot topic. I dropped a video earlier today stating why it was smart for Florida State to continue to go after Travis Hunter, and why Travis Hunter is, no matter what the relationship was beforehand, I completely understand where everybody gets personally invested. He was committed to Florida State for quite some time, and I get that. And he threw the hat. I understand that too. But like James said a minute ago, to these kids, these rivals and stuff, that's not a matter yet. It's all business. So he made a business decision to go play underneath a mentor of his, and he got that experience. I've heard personally he don't want to be in the snow. Colorado's got a lot of snow, and he might want to step out from the shadows of his mentor and build his own legacy. So I respect what his decision was back then, and I also respect his decision of wherever he goes in the near future, even if that is going back to Deion at Colorado. But I don't think that's the case right now. I think he's really sought after another school. I think he's having conversations with a lot of schools, not just one or two in particular. But I told people today, if Florida State is not in contact with Travis Hunter, they're the only team in the United States that's not, especially in Power 5. They would be the only school that is not at least talking to him. So, Chip, I'm going to start with you. What is your opinion? Because you're more of a diehard type, the older school fans of don't spit on my school, that kind of thing. So what is your feelings on Travis Hunter?
Well, like James, like learn how to adapt my thinking to how these newer players and fans are. We would be complete fools not to kick the tires on him. He is a lifelong Florida State fan. Yes, I saw earlier where USC's thrown their hat in, Georgia's thrown their hat in, and even the U's thrown their hat in. With these newer players, money talks and bullshit walks. And I think Norvell and the staff owe it to themselves to kick the tires on him, because he's one of those like once in a lifetime talents. And I would love to see him in garnet and gold, but the kid has to make his own decisions, and best of luck to him wherever he decides to go. But I hope he's sporting garnet and gold this coming fall.
Taylor?
I mean, it just is what it is. I mean, if he comes, he comes. If he doesn't, he doesn't. It's just kind of how I look at it. I think that the ship, as it goes through with signing day and throwing the hats down, I just think at a certain situation, a certain point, the staff is still going to go after him because he's super talented. But at the same point, if you don't get him, you don't get him.
Well, I'm before I go right here to James, because I know where James is going to go. We've had multiple conversations about this. I'm ready for James's piece on this. But before we jump straight into James pushing his piece, what I want James to bring out for people to really listen to and pay attention, because I had to say, listen to the video I dropped earlier with an open mind, because I know there's some diehard fans that don't agree with going after your ex-girlfriend. I get it. But James, how could Travis Hunter elevate not only the DB room, but this team with the type of talent that he is? And a lot of people are saying that he's not that great of a talent, that he's overrated. Did you not watch his film this year? He's not that great. I don't know what everybody else watched, because what I watched was what he is. And what he is the former or the number one player for the 2022 class. I think he still holds that. But what do you think Travis Hunter coming to Florida State would do for this team?
One, I think it would automatically make you cool, help in recruiting. Travis Hunter has, whether you like his play, whether you like what he did or not, he does have an it factor that is why he gravitated to Prime. Wherever he goes, the attention comes to him, and people kind of confuse that as, oh, that's just me being a showy, being an eye person, and it's one of those things. Some people just have magnetic personalities, and they can do absolutely nothing, and everybody will come to them. And that's what this kid is. And a lot of it has to do with his play dating back to when he was in high school in 707. I tell people all the time, that's the first high school kid I've ever put a tape on and says, son, I want you to compete like Travis Hunter. And he had the picture with Travis Hunter at the Notre Dame game last year. And I'm like, yo, I want you to, this is somebody you should try to be like on the football field. Now, I also believe he's a competitor. When you go and, you know, I saw some of the things immature during the Celebration Bowl, but at the same time, also one of the things of a competitor. Got his head slammed into the ground, helmet got taken off, hops up, shoves the guy. Should have been kicked out the game, but, you know, that happens. I'm glad he wasn't. But I think from a wide receiver perspective, he automatically makes your DBs get better because they're going to have to, like, he is explosive off the line, period. Like, when he runs his routes, he runs with purpose. And, like, he's getting there very, very fast. And you have to make your decision as a DB. That translates whether you're playing NAIA ball or you're playing major Power 5 ball. You can look at it and tell. Now, will he be jammed and can people do things like that? Oh, yeah. I believe he'll struggle with that in the beginning. There's also things that you could do as an offensive coordinator to make sure he's never in that position again, i.e., look at what Florida did with the Pilgrim. What's the kid? He's still catching passes on us. Terrifies me. I don't want to see. I think what I said, I'm going to have an NIL deal. A wide receiver, I want you at Florida State. You're going to get an NIL deal from me because at worst, we need to practice against you because all of our rivals have that one guy, and that's our kryptonite. But he's kind of like that. You can move him around. But I think I'm spinning the block on him if he wants to come here. So
I completely agree. But a lot of people are worried that he's going to come here and be bad for the locker room or that he's going to get in trouble off the field. The only thing that I can say to that is history doesn't state that in any way. He was a top student at JSU. He had no issues. He didn't get in trouble throughout the entire school year. He hasn't been in trouble at high school and previous to that being at JSU. I'm not stating that that anyone's perfect. And I can't predict whether they're going to be good or bad. But if you have that concern with Travis Hunter, then you have to have that concern with each and every player that's coming in because you don't know them. You probably know them less than you know Travis Hunter because he's too big of a name to be getting in trouble right now. He's trying to make it to the NFL. There's a lot of things around him. Do those players make those mistakes? Absolutely. But he has shown no character of doing so. So I think people have an image that they've created in their mind of what he is, and you don't really know that to be fact. It's just you're pissed because you emotionally invested him being here, and he flipped the script and went to JSU. It pissed you off because you emotionally invested yourself in a 17-year-old kid's decision. But we'll move on away from him. Do y'all feel like there's any in particular recruit, we won't say transfer guy right now, but any particular recruit that we would like to pull for Florida State that is questionable right now? Mine is the Cameron Robinson kid that's committed to Virginia, the linebacker. I really want that kid at Florida State. I think he's dynamic. I think he'll do a lot of good things. And I think that our linebacker room needs that extra guy. Chip, what are your thoughts? Is there any in particular guy that you would like to bring on, even if they are committed already, that you hope sticks?
Well, one that I know that will stick, and I know we haven't mentioned him because he was already a given that he was coming, was Lamont Green Jr. That kid, I finally sat down this past weekend when I got some time and watched some of his highlights. That kid has a motor that does not stop, and he definitely will wear that 4-5 with pride at FSU, and I'm excited to see what Boots can do.
Taylor, what are your thoughts? Do you have anybody in particular?
I mean, you kind of took, the guy I was wanting, but I did have a backup. Andy Jean, 4-star wide receiver commit from Florida. I think that's a guy you really need to go after because I'm not necessarily sure that Goldie ends up in this class. personally. We'll see. He did not make it to Florida State this weekend, and it is somebody that you have to monitor. I think Andrevius Jacobs and Hakeem Williams are both two very, very elite options. I think he is a dynamic slot receiver while Hakeem is on the outside. I think those two guys can be a focal point in your wide receiver room, but I don't think Florida State's done. I think they want to get 3 wide receivers in this class. I think Goldie is kind of looking elsewhere at certain options, not really signing until later on in February. So we'll kind of see how that kind of transpires as we go through. But as James talked about it before, I think he's a talented weapon. I think he can be efficient. He is a guy and points the ball very well, but I just don't know if that translates to what you necessarily need right now. I think he's very boom or bust. I think his ceiling can be incredibly high, but I think his floor can also be pretty low. So I do like Goldie as a player. I do think he's very talented, but I think Andy Jean is a more complete product out of that Miami area that I think Florida State can realistically grab if they want to, and maybe can fall into his lap. So,
James, any in particular guy that we have or don't have that you would like?
I'm gonna be honest. I mean, yeah, I like Sam Singleton. I got a chance to see guys play, and I'm not even gonna lie to you guys. I'm probably over the top when it comes to guys that I give my seal of approval to, because if they want to play at Florida State, I don't want a guy that sucks and everybody's gonna be like, James brought us this bad player, like it was a kid I personally trained. But I saw one young man who probably end up going to Georgia, and I'm like, he doesn't need to be here. We don't need that kind of guy in our locker room. Talented, but just not there, too raw, not going to fit in. But then we saw Sam, and I actually saw Sam at Golden Corral on Saturday. I almost tripped him because that boy is still running on us. But I saw something, and we have a really good linebacker that's getting underlooked, but like I've seen him like play. If he was 2 inches taller and about 210, he'd be a 5-star. But the kid can feel and he can hit. And I saw him go feel, and for the first time, I saw him just slide off of a kid. And then I seen Sam hit another gear, and I said, holy crap. He has that ability? I was like, whoa, all right. And I said immediately, I'm like, hey, we got one right here. This kid right here is good. I don't know what we're going to do. This kid is just giving us fits. So I'm hoping, to see what he can do. And that's why, when people are like, man, Mark Fletcher's committed to UM, or Florida's got this guy, or somebody else has got this guy. I'm like, have y'all not heard me rave over Sam Singleton? And I may not know a lot about offensive line or wide receivers or very much about anything, but I dang sure think I know a thing or two about telling people to run where they ain't. And that boy ran where they was not very fast. So that would be one of my guys who I'm interested, because he's big too. He's not a small running back. He's a big, fast, physical back.
Well, I like all the picks personally. I think I've been really high on Singleton since he verbally committed to Florida State. I really like him as a running back. I think he'll even lift the room extremely quickly, even though our running back room is pretty dynamic already. He's a valued piece to what the future is for Florida State. The pick on Lamont Green Jr., I think we take him for granted as Florida State fans because we just know he's coming. Like there's not a question that he could be flipped. And I think he will be very dynamic eventually. I don't think he's a year one starter personally. And I could be wrong. He could be, but I think he's going to require a little bit of work and things to transpire for him to be good. But I do think he's going to be very good. And the gentleman that's currently verbally committed to Florida, and I would love to say I think he's flipping because he had such a great time. Andy, what's his name?
Andy
Jean.
I mean, I'm not guessing he's flipping. I think it's still kind of in the works, a lot of things, but yeah, it would definitely be a great grab if we were able to get him. So.
I personally think we have a better shot at getting him than Florida does. And the reason that I say that is anytime that a recruit starts quoting scripture while on a visit and James seen that while we were doing the last show, there's a pretty good shot that you're going to pull that kid. It's not always true, but it does happen. There's something I'm going to bring up that's a little bit off base of what we're talking about. We'll get back to it. But I seen Amari Gaynor on his official visit to West Virginia and then also North Carolina. Seeing him in those other uniforms it really bothers me. I know he has to do it. I know he's got to go on and potentially, build his legacy to go into the NFL, and he doesn't feel like he can do it here at FSU. But, man, it really bothers me to see him in different uniforms. It really does. I can't. I just don't feel good about it. Like, every time I see it, I'm like, Jesus, can this year, and just I want it to be over. And I don't mean this season. I mean next season. I want to see Amari play for nobody else. Taylor, I want you to kind of take the realm on asking a couple of questions of what you're seeing. Maybe ask us a couple of what's going on.
So I'm not one to worry a lot, but are y'all a little bit more worried about defensive back recruiting? Just a tad bit. I mean, you're looking at Damari Brown. He's crystal ball to Alabama now at this point. His older brother that came and visited Florida State, now he's getting crystal ball to Miami. You're looking at Edwin Joseph, a guy that we just saw put Louisville in his profile description. And then you're looking at Conrad Hussey. That's also kind of a wishy-washy kind of thing, and you don't really know where he's going. And it's just you're looking at all your targets, and you're like, man, are we going to strike out on all four of those guys, plus maybe some other guys as well?
I'm personally worried a little bit about DB recruiting. I would love to have Crow. If we decide to move on from Coach Woodson, or Coach Woodson decides to move on from us, I really, really hope that Cromartie fits at least the interview. Because if he gets the interview, I think he ends up at Florida State as a DB coach. But yes, I will be completely honest. I am a little bit worried about DB recruiting.
Chip, what do you think? Do you think there's any kind of concerns or worries, or do you think it's all just kind of blowing smoke and we just kind of figure out what's what?
I think it's a combination of all the above. It doesn't sit well in the pit of your stomach when you see that, the crystal balls are all projecting other teams, and then you see one of the ones you go after has got now Louisville in his profile. And, I've said it from day one that I honestly think, Antonio Cromartie should be on this staff, and that he would lift up our DB room to, a level it hasn't been in a while. But, that's, Norvell doesn't fire assistants. They seem to go on their own. So, I mean, it's just one of those, it's a wait and see. But, yeah, it doesn't sit well with me. But it is what it is.
Probably one of the weaker points. You got to get you got to land one of these these transfer portal guys. Whether it be the DB from Virginia, I believe it was Virginia. We got Virginia and Syracuse that are two that we're in it for. Brown ain't coming here. Brown's going to Miami. That's unfortunate, but you just gotta do that, or we just have to really get better in the trenches, or your front seven to protect your back.
I'll go ahead and break some breaking news just now. Jeremiah Byers has now committed to Florida State, so it's a massive UTEP offensive tackle transfer. Yeah, he's pretty good. So,
is that from UTEP or?
Yeah, UTEP.
Yeah, cool.
Mm-hmm.
That's amazing. Great news to break. That's
he's got 3, right?
3 years left.
Yeah, massive. That was a massive pickup, honestly. And this is just coming from some of my sources I spoke to about it. They were very worried about Oregon, and getting him not only coming off of that visit, and being able to solidify that as a concern this past weekend, to get that is impressive. That is elite in terms of getting your productive guy in there and being able to have success on the portal. And like James talked about, you get 5, man, you're telling the weak lies if you're getting 5.
Right. James, this question popped up when you were talking about. I think you were talking about the lack in the DB room, or not DB room, but the lack of recruiting for DBs, and we needed to land them out of the transfer portal. I brought up Cromartie being a DB coach at Florida State. The question was, they said that they knew that he could recruit, but can he develop players? My answer is absolutely. Do you think Crow would have any problems developing DBs here if he was a coach at Florida State?
Something we can do is chop it up with him. If you listen to Cromartie talk, you'll instantly become smarter when it comes to talking about coverages and different things. Like, he even taught me some things about him and another one, Stanford Samuels, both very good students of the game, where we talked about quarters coverage and how quarters is basically man, but how is quarters covered for? How is that man if it's zone? Well, it just all depends upon up until where the routes go and how things are going. And this, when he was breaking it down, and then when he was talking to me about why he wasn't really comfortable with the last staff, and he had a cousin that ended up going to a rival, and he was like, I just can't tell you to come to my school because I don't think you're going to get developed. But when you listen to him talk, you see the energy that he puts in the youth. And on top of that, one of the things that a lot of former players get the benefit of the doubt is when you are a former All-Pro, Pro Bowl guy, elite athlete, first overall pick. Guys, again, it's the same reason Travis Hunter went to play for Prime. You're telling me I'm going to be the next Prime. Who better to tell me to be the next Prime than Prime? Crow can literally come into a kid and say, hey, you do X, Y, and Z. I'm going to do this. And guys are going to immediately come back and want to develop because of the rapport. He's got great relationships with BMAC. He's got great relationships with T-Buck. He's got great relationships with other guys. And he also still talks to a lot of his NFL coaches. So he's going to actually go and not just lean on his own understanding and his own smarts. He's going to really go out there and use his entire network and his time to really go out and get these guys better. Because when I tell you he's a guy that's going to be there from what's the crazy part is he'll run guys off, not because they dislike him. It's because he's going to expect you to match his work ethic. He'll be there from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. if he needs to. And if you got to work on some technique, he'll take his time to work with you on some things, but he's going to expect you to be there and expect you to do it. So I think the level of accountability is way high if Crow were able to come on the staff in any capacity.
Awesome. I love that take, to be completely honest. We're going to move.
My bad. Can I say one more thing, too? I'm just going to be completely transparent. Antonio Cromartie now, as an adult, is way different than Antonio Cromartie as a teammate, by the way. So I'm not just saying that because he's my teammate. As a teammate, he was probably more like what you think a lot of these other guys are. Extremely talented, worked hard, never didn't work hard, but like maybe a little arrogant, chip on the shoulder. Got to the NFL, like maturity, all these different things. When I tell you Crow is like that, like I would love for my son to be coached by Crow. Like Crow is really a good, like I can't say that about every teammate. I may like him. I can't say that about every teammate. Crow is a damn good coach.
I definitely agree. I wasn't his teammate, but everything that I know about Crow, hearing him talk, like James said, if you talk to Crow about the defensive back coverages, stuff to that nature, you will immediately become smarter. And that's a fact. We're going to move the conversation over to what we think Florida State's going to be in 2023. Are we an ACC title contender? Are we a playoff contender? Are any of those things in the realms of what Florida State could be for 2023? This is a really early conversation about this, not knowing your full team yet, but we have a pretty good idea of what we're getting. Chip, what are your thoughts on Florida State being an ACC contender or therefore a playoff contender?
As far as ACC contender, I believe we're one of the top 2 teams in the ACC now that the divisions are gone and they're just playing the 2 top teams will go to the championship. As long as FSU doesn't trip over their own dick, which I do not see that happening this year. Our offense, from what we know right now, is very set, except for a few pieces on offensive line, and we return most of our defense. This is going to be a good team, and as far as national championship, like playoff contender, is it next year? Or is it 2025? They expand to the 12 teams.
2024.
2024.
Oh, 24.
I believe we can, going into the year, we are a preseason top 5 team. I honestly believe that in my heart. As the season unfolds, yes, I think we can be a playoff team, but where it goes from there is just wherever the chips fall.
Okay. Taylor, what are your thoughts about ACC contender? Or, because next year it's still the 4-team playoff. That doesn't go into effect until, is it 24 or 25? That the 12, yeah.
It's just something to really think about. I mean, you look at Florida State's schedule. They've got guys like Boston College, Clemson, Miami, Syracuse, Wake Forest, Duke, Virginia Tech, and Pittsburgh. I mean, that conference schedule really doesn't scare you. I mean, yeah, you're playing Florida on the road as non-conference. You're playing LSU and Orlando, and it's just kind of some factors in there that maybe if you go to you're playing Virginia Tech at home, you're playing at Pitt. Maybe if Pitt's actually going to be competitive this season, we'll kind of see how that goes. But I mean, the schedule really doesn't scare you. I mean, you can look at that schedule and maybe see 10 wins. So I mean, if 1 win or 2 wins goes your way, I mean, you're pretty much in the ACC championship at that point. And I mean, when you're looking at that, I mean, that's a recipe for success. I mean, you're getting guys like Jeremiah Byers, you're getting guys like Casey Roddick, who is going to be high quality starters at this point. Will they be able to get some on the defense side of the ball? We're all talking about Fabian Lovett and Jamie Robinson and guys like that. Will they come? It's to be determined. I mean, they're accepting Senior Bowl invites. You can always opt out of it. Let's just say they play the bowl game, and next thing you know, they want to come back from Florida State, come back another year. It happens. I mean, so you just have to understand that Florida State is kind of at this time where it's a pivotal breaking point. You need to get some of these commits in here. You need to get some of the transfers and everything like that. But it's very possible that Florida State can make some noise. Not going to ever be like a Miami fan and say we're going 12-0 every year. But I will say that Florida State has a decent shot at being competitive in an ACC conference that is not that great.
Like, it's 4-game season again, except for 2 of the games you really still feel confident in. Clemson, until you beat Clemson, Clemson is Clemson. But I think we can beat them. And LSU, even though we beat them, I'm paying attention to what LSU did this season. Also, the additions that they're getting, like they're going to be good. They're going to be. It's going to be a good game next year. It'll be a good battle. But again, if you go and you win that LSU game, you are literally in the driver's seat to be the most talked about, one of the top 5 most talked about teams for the rest of the year. Even if you lose that game and you come back and you do what you're supposed to do, you're going to finish with an opportunity to play in Charlotte. If we're not, one of the things I always say, the standard is the standard, and the standard is playing for championship. I think we got too spoiled, and people in general, like there's only 4 teams that get opportunities to play for the national championship. Even when they expanded to 12, there's legitimately only 4 teams that really have a shot to play in the national championship. But I think it sullies what a conference championship is. Like, those are tough to get to, man. Like, that's a proud moment to win a conference championship. And we haven't won one of those in quite some time. So if we're in the conference championship and we're playing for it, we are now playing standard ball. And that's my expectation for Mike Norvell going into year 4, is what the true standard is. The standard is the standard, and the standard is over everything. And coach knows that, and I think they've embraced that as well.
I like what all 3 of you said. I'm not even going to add to it because I think y'all covered like every portion of what could have been covered with that conversation. There's a lot of stuff going on in the chat right now. We'll hit on this a little bit before I go into some quick bits, but a lot of people are calling Mike Norvell corny. A lot of people are saying that he's not that great of a recruiter. That the only thing that he can do is pull kids out of the transfer portal. We beat Miami and Florida. We're a better team than both. How come they're kicking our ass in the recruiting states of right now? James, you want to touch on that first?
Yeah, Corny. No, he's not that. He's not braggadocious. He doesn't have bravado. He's not Mario Cristobal. One, there's two things. I always said this was an 8 to 10 win team with a top 15 recruiting class. We're on par to have that. So I'm not disappointed at all. One of the things you get in your first year of coaching is you get your transition class and you get that first real class, and you can sell projections. Then you're going to have to rely on proof of product, a proof of concept. Right now, Miami isn't. Now, what I'm thinking is that if you look at what our 24 class is, which I believe is top 5, and we got some really, really heavy hitters in there, and some guys who are ready to come in and compete day one. Our 2025 class is really starting to trend and get some guys. And you say that you think that's far away, but it's really right around the corner when you think about it. That's where we're going for. And this class right here that we're getting is people talk about, so wide receiver, you get a 5-star wide receiver. Potentially, Falk will be a 5-star when they recalibrate. So you got one of the best defensive ends. You got one of the best wide receivers in the nation. If you flip Gene, you got 2 of the best wide receivers in the nation. You got Lucas Simmons, one of the best offensive linemen in the nation. You got Sam Singleton, a 4-star wide receiver. You've got talent. You've got Blake Nicholson, one of the best linebackers. You've got, we still have Boots. Like, when you really go and you look at some of the guys you have, why are you saying you don't recruit? Is it because you're comparing yourself to Mario Cristobal? Let me tell you what they have to do. They're going to have to replace almost 40 players. You only get 85 scholarships. To replace almost half of your – I love to tell people, think about it like business. If you have to replace half of your workforce and give the best output that you've ever had, I got news for you. It's not going to happen. It's going to take time to train up those employees and to make them what you want them to be. And you can't keep having turnover like that or you'll stagnate. And Mario Cristobal had top classes in Oregon. He had a generational talent in Sewell. He had a generational talent in Herbert. He had a generational talent in Kayvon Thibodeau and numerous linebackers and linebackers on offensive line and running backs that went to the NFL, and he got beat by a bunch of Mormons. He could not, and when the Pac-12 got Lincoln Riley, he packed his bags and moved to Miami because he knew it was a real man coming to town that was going to change USC into the sleeping giant. G5 Willie is down there. He's corny. Bottom line is you keep winning. Florida State recruits itself. It will happen. Build the foundation. We don't have 40 guys to replace this year. We have very few, and we know what we're going to look like next year and in 2024. So just, give it time. Ride it out.
Just wanted to add something else as well. Devontae Brown, the cornerback transfer from UCF, he did commit to Miami. So he is transferring over there.
Taylor, what are your thoughts on Mike Norvell being corny?
I mean, he relates to the guys that are very experienced. He doesn't play any games with anybody, understands that he's very passionate in what he does. I think you have to understand that. I mean, when you come into a building, you don't want a guy just to be all lame and boring and just, here it is. You want to see a guy with passion. You want to see a guy that's going to act the same as what he did when he came through the door to what he's going to do on a Saturday practice, anything. I mean, it's just a situation where you're coming into it and you're trying to figure out everything that's going. And with Mike Norvell, his passion and energy throughout the weeks, throughout even the off season at this point, you're trying to figure out what he is. That's who he is. So he doesn't hide it, and he doesn't plan to hide it. So,
Chip.
Norvell translates to those who really want to work, who really want to succeed. That's the reason why he hits as well as he does in the transfer portal. A lot of these guys want to better themselves and who can get the most out of the talent that they have. That's Ben Norvell. I could care less what people thinking he's quote unquote corny. All to me, Mario Cristobal all he is a used car salesman.
Again, I like all of y'all's points. You pretty much covered everything that I would have said. Other than one thing I will say, I think the reason that Norvell and them have a little bit of trouble on the recruiting path is being able to navigate through finding the right character. Y'all don't realize how picky Norvell is on who he's bringing in. He's not looking at he's a 4-star, he's a 5-star, he's a 4-star, he's a 5-star. He doesn't offer every 4 and 5-star that's out there. He doesn't even offer every 4 and 5-star that Miami and Florida offer. He's very, very picky on who he goes and offers. He doesn't just offer anyone because of their status. He doesn't just offer you because you're a 5-star or the number one player in the realm of things. Everybody says that you trust Norvell on his evaluation, that he evaluates better than any other coach. That's been said by multiple fans. That's why I bring up Travis Hunter. He's the one guy that's the top larger-than-life name that was a 5-star that Norvell thought character-wise was the guy you could bring to Florida State. So that's why I tell y'all when I say it makes sense to go after Travis Hunter, not only because he was the number one player in the class, not only because of he's larger than life itself name-wise, but because the evaluation was already done by the guy we trust, and that's Mike Norvell. He loved his character. He loved his ability to lead. That's why he's only going after particular guys. That's as far as I'm going with that. I've got 4 minutes left. Guys, kind of let everybody know where to follow you. And I'm going to move this thing to the end here. Taylor?
You can find me at Norvell Central on Instagram, Central Norvell on Twitter, and I hope everyone has a good night.
Oh, and don't forget, y'all make sure that you go and check out Taylor's YouTube page. That can also be found at Norvell Central. Pretty cool. YouTube's made it to where you can search people by their handle, which would be, in my case, at Spiratics. At Taylor's case, at Norvell Central, I'm sure.
Mm-hmm.
So make sure you go check it out. He's been dropping a lot of content over the past couple of days. He's been putting out content daily. Go check those videos out. Give it a like. Make sure you subscribe to his page. Also, make sure that you subscribe to this page. And another thing that you can do to make sure that you don't miss any of the content is hit the bell, because that'll notify you when we go live or if any content is dropped. What is really cool is now there's a community section to YouTube. You can see just regular posts, whether we're writing something, dropping pictures, dropping videos, whatever it is, you can check that out. It's very close to what Twitter would look like or Instagram. So make sure when you go to our page, you don't just look up the videos, but check out the posts that were also made. James, let them know where they can find you real quick.
At Big Game James _36 on Twitter, IG, at Den Media Group on YouTube. Check us out. We still got tailgate tickets. Listen, November the 26th, the day after Christmas, or whenever we get to 300 tickets, the price is going to go up for it. Please go ahead and buy $50, all you can eat, all you can drink. We still have about 6 parking spots left if anybody wants those. Let's have a big tailgate to end the season, and then let's get it ready to jumpstart into having a championship year in 2023. Also, if anybody's in Tallahassee, you got a kid that's been really, really good that wants to go on a shopping spree to Academy Sports on Friday, inbox me. I'll tell you the details on how to win. I'm taking 10 kids on a $100 shopping spree. All right, Chris.
Appreciate it, James. Real quick, Chip, let them know where they can find you.
You can find me at Unconquered 850 on Facebook. You can find me at Chip Westerly 9 on IG and on Twitter.
Appreciate it. I appreciate you coming on. Everyone, it was a packed information, packed opinion episode. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. I think the guys that were on here did a great job, as usual. I really appreciate everybody's support. In the live session, we had over 250 people at one point that stayed for almost the whole show. That was really cool on YouTube alone. This is also on Boxcast and WSBN Network. Please go check us out. You can download the Boxcast app on any phone, any tablet, even a smart TV, and download that app, Boxcast. Then go find in the search bar WSBN